This is about Chapter 2. I'm going to talk to you about this program exercise number 7 right now, okay? So disregard for all future classes with it. I'm just going to focus on number 7 for Lab 2 with it as well. So this is what it looks like number 7 looks like. It says write a program that prompts the user to input a decimal number and output the number round to the nearest integer. A couple of things I want you to talk about. We're going to start with the new compiler today with it, and let's talk about the algorithm in this thing. So typically for the next couple of chapters with it, let me use the notepad as kind of like a sheet that we can actually write our algorithm with this stuff with it. The entire process that we're doing is in programming is we're doing what's called memory management, okay? To be exact with it. So we're doing what's called memory management of the RAM storage with it. So I'd like for you to think about how you want to store it, because we don't have a plethora of number of RAM that you can actually spread out for everything with it. So in this particular next few chapters, just to keep things straight with it, you can remember these 3 steps. You're going to allocate memory, meaning think about how you want to dictate the memory size of a data type with it in chapter 2. So allocate memory, give the proper size for the variables with it. Very important. 2, you're going to do something with that variable or memory. Okay. Variables are variable. Okay. You can do something with it. It could be some sort of calculation. It could be calculation. Anything you want to store. Okay. You calculate, store things into the finite step, and then the last step was your output or display to screen. So just these 3 steps. You allocate memory. You give it a memory size. You do something with that memory, think about it, you want to take this variable plus this variable, store it into another variable, that type of stuff with it, and you got to output to the screen. It could be output to a printer, it could be output to a console, meaning a screen with it. So just keep this in mind for me in these 3 steps with it. So in here, here's what I like for you to do, I'd like for you to fire up Visual Studio. In our case with it, we're going to do the Visual Studio 2019 with this. Okay, so again, I'm going to create a new project. I asked everybody to store it into a folder that I gave you in here with it. So I'd like for you to create an empty project like you did for the Hello World with it. Click on Next, call this thing whatever I want you to call it. I think I asked you to call it Chapter 2 _ exercise, program exercise, prog exercise, whatever it's called, and point it to a directory inside that lab folder for me, okay? But for now, for my sake with it, I'm just going to put this on a sandbox, a little place but for you, you got to put this under the lab and the proper folder like I instruct you to do. Third step is to make sure you check play solution for the project in the same directory. Click on Create with this. So just give it a second. It's going to generate this file, which you should have something like this. Right mouse click, you're going to add a new item. You're going to add the CPP. What are we going to call this? We're going to call this main, because our main function. There's nowhere it will tell you that you're going to save this as a main, but I want you to call this as a main because you're going to have an int main function in there. This is what we do in industry with it, so we know this is the main function. Bear with me, make sure it's CPP that you're adding, and you click on Add. Again, do your 3 skeleton. This is your lab 2. Give me a description. This is your chapter 2. Whatever, this is what programming exercise number 7. Okay, again, put in your skeleton like you did for the Hello World IO stream Notice my IntelliSense kicks in here. Start with just start typing. That's the only way you're gonna learn a program is just not stare at the screen, but bear with me using namespace std semicolon and get used to int main. And I want to, as we get into chapter 3, 4, and 5, and 6, this will become more meaningful for you to understand. And the last statement is, but for now, I just like for you just to memorize and get used to this for this verbiage for me right now with it. All right, so let me close this out. Let me talk to you about this. Let's take that first step that what we just looked at. It asks you to basically, there's allocate memory. That's the first step we're going to do, right? Yeah, we got to, if you look at the instruction, it asks you to do it. You have to understand what you look at. It asks you to write a program that prompts the user, all right, to input a decimal, and then you're basically outputting it rounding off to the nearest integer. Well, typically I don't do it the way how I do it right now. You actually use ceilings and floors and all this stuff with it, but you don't know that yet with it, all right? So first of all, the first step is, why do we have different data types with it? First of all, in your reading, if you recall, there's integers, there's doubles, there's char, there's all different types of integers that you have here, all right? So one of the things you need to know from the integers that you're running with it is to the right data size with it for precision, all right? So for example, I'm just comment out, so what is 5.2, okay? So if I ask you if x is 5.2 and if int, I want to put this as a comment here so you can, this is going to be ignored, don't worry about it. But if this is part of, for you to understand that if I said integer x is equal to 5 or 6.23 with it, what's going to happen is this is an integer. Integer means it does not have a decimal, so this part will be dropped off, so it will be just 6, okay? So if I say if x, which is only 4 bytes by the way, double is a bigger data type, has 8 bytes to it, it's going to take this precision to the right 10th precisions with it. So that's why you got to have the right data types with it. It's about precisions, rounding off in the right positions with it as well. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to actually give it an identifier name. I'm going to call this a number. So I'm going to remove the comments here with it. So this is a name, which is an identifier. We'll call that a double. That's an 8-byte that you can store things into as well. So that's the first step, prompt the user. So I would say the step right here is to, 1, declare variables. Okay, you only have one variable actually. So step 2, you got to what? It says prompt the user, right? Prompt meaning asking a question on the screen, and you have the user to input. So to prompt the user on the screen, remember the hello world? Yeah, use the cout stream insertion operator, and you want to prompt the user what? Enter an integer, or to be exact, enter a decimal number, do a space, and then ML. Remember this? So this is your output. Now, you read it in, you store it in by using a command called cin, stream extractor operator. What variable are you going to store this in? You're going to store this variable inside of the number. Okay, watch. The moment I put n, my IntelliSense drops down. I put u, it picks it up more. And I want to do another m, it narrows it down. Here is this variable right here. This variable is this variable. You see how I highlighted that? And then you gotta put a semicolon. Every command you gotta end with a semicolon. This ends with a semicolon, semicolon. Lets you know it ends. The only one that does not have semicolon in the statement is the header file or the preprocessor. Now, inside of this you gotta do a cout NL. This will take the cursor down to the next line. It just lets the user know that with it. Now, the next step, coming down here with it, you need to output what you just did. Now, So you would say the integer, let's say integer nearest to with a space, and what is this operator called? String insertion operator. What do you want to output? This variable called number that you just input into this thing. Put another string after it, so it's going to equal. And now you're going to write your expression here. Okay, you write your expression here. Okay. Now, if you remember about the static CAS operator, so the static CAS. Let me comment out this a little bit to explain what's going on. Let me check my time here. Hold on, I have to do part 2, okay?